So hey guys, good morning, or yeah, still good morning. So this is ARC 252. This is going to be part B of our little sheets and views tutorial. I think that I got just about to the overall building section views, and those have all been set up. So that's cool, or set up. Why set up one of them? Let's. What we're going to do is jump back in and make sure that we've got some of the other views set up, and I'll show you how to do those today. So let's jump in here. So share my screen, and here we go. So as far as we got last time, just a quick recap here. We've got the building section cut through our overall building here, just below grid line B. And just to remember, if we do want to kind of open up that view, a couple different ways to get to it. The first is that we can come over here to our sections, and I've relabeled this elevator and stair section because it's cut through the elevator and the stair. We can either double click on that view, double click over here, or right click on the view in plan, and we're going to go to the view itself. So I just fire that up, hit go to view, and we can see here we've got some additional detail in that view. Some other things, so we did also do our sheet. So our sheet has been set up, just double click that in our project browser, open up our sheet here. So we've got number one, elevator and stair section. So if we jump back into how we're going to generate a couple of extra views here, I'll show you how to do that just as a quick refresh. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but just so that we can get some additional views onto the sheet. So if we can remember from our previous iteration here, we've got ARC 252, our little reference drawings here. If I jump to our plan, I can see that we've got one section cut here. This is the section that's already been cut, right? So the section has already been cut kind of through here. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut another section just a little bit north, kind of cut through the stairs of our fire stair and some of the other pieces in here. So why don't we go ahead and let's make that happen. So jump to our plan view. So we're going to come from our section view here. We're going to jump back into our plan main floor level. We can generate this a couple different ways. Remember, up on our quick access toolbar, we can generate a new section using the section tool in the quick access toolbar, or we can go to view over here and grab our section tool just right here. Another way, the way that I like to do it, you don't have to do it this way, but a way that I like to do it is actually we can copy this section. So simply components, we're going to find a reference for us to copy from. And I know that we're going to copy it to just kind of in between the doors here. So let's just do that. And we should see, if I double tap escape, we should see in our project browser, a new section has emerged here. So elevator and stair section 1. It's great for us. It's going to copy the same settings. So you'll see if I just open this up, it should have a very similar view, with the exception that our bubbles are not on the right side. So let's go ahead and we can quickly do that. So let's just go ahead and whoops, tab select here. And tab select is going to make our bubbles on the right side. That's just drawing convention. And what we can do is jump back to our building section page here, and we can drag and drop our new section onto the sheet here. So you'll notice, similar to the other view that we had for our elevations, what Revit is trying to do is I place this view onto the sheet. It's trying to lock a standard reference, we'll call it, or a reference for the drawing itself. So you can see I'm just kind of hovering. Give me a little preview of the box. If I just hover kind of towards the middle here, this is going to line up our grids. So Revit is smart enough to say, cool, you want to line up the grids? No problem. So this is looking pretty good. We're probably going to rename this something else. So I think this is cut through the offices. Let's just double check our reference drawing here and see on our view what we've actually named that. So overall, I've actually called this an overall building section. So let's come back into Revit and we will rename this view. Right click, rename overall building section. See, the scale is the same, so 1 to 100, so that's good for us. And then a couple additional views we need to generate. They're going to be cut the other way. So I would prefer to use the section tool in this way. We might copy another one, but let's just quickly take a look here. So we've got the stair section and the elevator section. So it's hard for me to place these in plan without kind of having a reference in the plan. So this is partially what we can do is to get to how do I know where this is? I'm going to go back to our overall plan. So if I'm doing a set of drawings, I'm not quite clear where this section has been taken. I can jump back to our overall floor plan and check out where detail 3 and detail 4 have been taken in the plan. So if I jump over here, we can see detail 3 and detail 4. So these two, one is facing a north-south section facing west, and this is a north-south section facing east. So why don't we go ahead and generate those? So I'm going to go to our floor plan and start to populate a couple sections in here. So let's jump to our floor plan, main floor level, I think it's just east of our grid line 1 here. So again, we can either just come up here at a section, and then I'm actually going to drag our view just a little bit so that it's not as far. We can double check in our wall section there and in our building section rather, and make sure that everything's cool. So one section, and then we know where the second section is. It's kind of cut just at the window here. So I'm actually going to move this one just a little bit. Or we can move, whoops. We can move by just clicking and dragging or using the move tool. I'm actually going to copy this. So let's just copy this over and somewhere around the window here. Perfect. One thing you'll notice is that this is actually facing the wrong way. So we're actually going to rotate this. I want it to be cut just over here. And I rotate this or flip it rather. So I'm going to flip the section, flip it like that. And we're going to just see what we get when we populate these sections onto sheets. So this can be really helpful. You can see here we got section 1, section 2. We can either rename them now or we can rename them later. They should be, we just click on the section itself. We'll see view scale 1 to 100. Everything looks pretty good here. So why don't we go ahead and first thing I'll do is rename the sections. So if I just jump to, I know I've got an elevator section and a stair section. So the stair section was first, it's on the far left. And then the elevator section is number 4 here. And we'll just name those accordingly. So let's make sure that we get those names in there. So we don't want to get things confused. So we know that this is going to be the stair section. And this one is going to be the elevator section. So I would say that it's good practice that when you're creating these sections, rather than label them section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's good practice to kind of give yourself a location where you've cut those sections. Once you're up into 90 or 100 sections, which you may have on your consequent projects, you need to be careful with the naming convention because you might just get lost. And we like to keep things tight inside of Revit so that we know where our sections are located, what they're called, and it can help, especially with bigger projects. So right now we've only got 4 overall building sections, but let's just jump to our sheet here, get to A301, and let's just populate with our last building sections here. So let's just drag this over here. You'll see we won't have any links, right? There's not going to be any dashed line that's going to say, oh, you want to line things up. And the reason for that is it's a different grid, right? So these ones are all using the kind of east-west grid, and our stair section is actually using the grid facing the other perpendicular direction. However, if, for instance, I wanted to line up levels and I just kind of hover over here to the left of our drawing, if I just come down a little bit, you'll see that it's going to get locked in here. So the reason it's doing that is because it's trying to line up the levels, and that can be really useful, helpful, makes sense for when we're drawing overall sections for our building to kind of line up the levels. We don't want to do that, but that's okay. Just so you know, it does let you do that inside of Revit. So I'll come over here, just drop it in here. Looking all right. So because we didn't copy it, we'll have to make some modifications here. So I can see that we've got some things we're going to have to change. We're going to get the bubbles from the left side to the right side. We're also going to have to change the overall drawing fidelity here. This is a pretty rough coarse level of model. And what we're going to need to do is change the view fidelity from coarse to medium or fine. But before we do that, why don't we just grab the last section here, get it on the sheet. It's nice to be able to lay out your drawings and then kind of get organized afterwards. So you can see here, it's hovering. And then if I just kind of pause here, it's going to give me a little dash line. And let's get that down there. Cool. So same thing. We'll probably just want to modify which side of the drawing our bubbles are living on and the coarseness of our overall drawing. So if we want, we can either double click inside the view to make it active, or we can right click activate view. I'm just going to go ahead and populate a couple of our bubbles in here. Right, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Make that cool. And then lastly, we should make sure that we've got fine detail on here. Immediately, we've got a little bit more detail, which is great. You can get out of the view by double clicking outside, or if we want to deactivate view, just right click and deactivate view. So same thing here. We're doing exactly the same thing. Let's get to medium or fine, and let's just get our bubbles on the right side. Unfortunately, this isn't automatic. I would love it if Revit just let us do these things automatically. It's a lot of help, but yeah. So those are our overall building sections for now. As I said previously, we don't have the topo solid in there for now. That's okay. But we can see some of the elements are starting to emerge inside of our overall detail here. So one thing you'll notice is that we've got all the references now. So all of the references are actually showing up live inside of our drawings. Um, and they're on this sheet included. So if we were to say, oh, where is that section 3 cut? So we've actually got some information in here. We can see that section 3 is cut through the stair and section 4 is cut through the elevator. So great. And vice versa, we can see where section 1 is cut on this drawing and also section 2. Really helpful when we're trying to find information in our drawing set where that information lives. So the easiest way I would say is probably to go to your main floor level, and let's just double check to make sure that all of our sections are showing out properly. Let's just go over here. We can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we got all 4 overall building sections set up. It's looking pretty good. And the idea here is that we've got those 4 overall building sections onto a sheet. And in this case, I'm not going to do this, but I just want to get us the views on the sheet. But we can also start to populate things like our room tags, our wall tags, and so on. So next step is going to be, we can see here just on the left-hand side of overall building section 2, there's a little blow up. There's a little blow up here. And what that means is that we're actually going to blow this up. So we've got this overall building section. We're going to get closer. We're going to try and generate a closer detail of this view. And you can see here we've got 400. So 2 things are going to happen. We're going to need to generate a new sheet and 2 new views. So 1, 2, right? We can see 1 here, and then there's also 1 hanging out up here. So why don't we go ahead and do that? It's up to you. The order doesn't really matter. We can generate the view before we generate the sheet, or we can generate the sheet and then generate the view and put the views on the sheet. Doesn't really matter, whatever your preference. But for us right now, why don't we go ahead and let's generate a couple of views here. So we want to get to 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and open up our views here. So we can either do this inside of the sheet. Best practice is typically in the view itself. So we can either do it inside the view on the sheet here by right-clicking, activate view. Then we're going to come up to the view ribbon and go to the callout. And that callout is going to help us generate a blow-up detail, a blow-up view. And how we do that is we're just going to click on the callout. And there's a couple things here. We're not going to touch this for now, this little reference here, but what that will let you do is reference another view. So don't touch that for now, but just so you know that that is there. What we want to do is we want to create a new wall section, and we're going to do that by just making ourselves a little sketch. So right now you see a little crosshair here. We want to make it on the kind of edge of our building at the wall section here. So you can start from either direction. I like to start top left to bottom right. So let's click on the top left corner here, come down to the bottom right, and now click a second time. And now we have a wall section. So this is a little wall section. It's another view with just the zone over here. So we got just the zone of this little wall section here. This part can be a little bit tricky. I do this first. This is totally up to you how you want to do it. But this little bubble here, Probably don't want it in the main space of our drawing. It's best practice to kind of keep it outside of the drawing. So what we can do here is we can actually pull this bubble all the way to the left here. So let's just grab the little drag head here, click, hold, and then like my drawing, we're going to move it to the outside of the building. Second thing, I'm going to try to get this about right. It's not the best. Revit isn't always super cooperative with how things are orthographically. We want them to be super flat, right? Super square. Couple things on this detail itself. If we click the section, so right now this is a blow up view. You can see here that the view scale of that view is 1 to 50. We've got detail level coarse. It's giving us a couple bits of information in here. If I click off it, we're back to building section. If I click on it, this is just the view itself. A couple things here. If we do want to change what we see, we can kind of crop the overall view and give us a little bit more information. So for us, we're going to try and keep it in this zone. So we're going to keep focused on the wall itself. And to get to this view, we should see, if I just scroll down here, we should see, not on the sheets, we should see an overall building section, and it should say call out, an overall building call out that's emerged here. So what that's telling us is that we've got a blow up view or an additional scale of view inside of this view that we've currently got. So it's a call out view of this overall building section. Cool. So a couple ways to get to this. Very similarly, if we jump over to the project browser, we can double click on the section itself. So if we want to double click here, double click that. Or we can come in here, we can right click and we can say, go to view. It'll bring up the same view just so you know that this is something that we can do. If we can see here, there's a couple things we probably want to change. We should check our overall scale of the drawing, and we're probably going to change this to fine. I know that, but let's check what our scale of our drawing is here. So if I jump back into this, we're going to look for our sheet A400, and we can see here again, bubbles on the right-hand side of the sheet, and 1 to 25. So let's make sure we've got the right scale for our drawings here. So let's jump back into our Revit file here, and we'll change this from 1 to 50 to 1 to 25. Everything will get a little bit smaller, but that's just because the drawing itself is getting bigger. So the annotations get smaller when the drawing gets bigger on the sheet. So why don't we go ahead and let's make another sheet for A400, I think I just said. So A400 here. So remember, for our sheets, we're going to come to our sheet down here, right click, new sheet, make a title block, okay, and now we've got A400. Make that drawing up. Unnamed, the title here, it's probably going to be wall sections. And then very similarly, if we want to get this drawing onto the sheet, I know that it's called overall building section. Again, best practice is to kind of name it and then get it on the sheet, but that's okay. We can kind of pull and drag this across. Let's just drop it somewhere on the sheet. What do we just say it was called? Masonry wall window opening. I always think you can do this, but I guess you can't. Okay, so just another little caveat of working with Revit is I should mention this as well. If we do want to rename it, we can click on the view itself here, and we can come down here and title this something new. We know that this is, what did I just say? It's going to be masonry wall window opening. Right. Delete all this. Masonry wall window opening. Which, let's just double check this because this is cut through a door. So that's okay. So masonry wall door opening. So let's make sure we're doing it in the right order here. We can see here that one section is cut through the window, and this section that I'm drawing currently is actually cut through the wall. So, sorry, through the door. So let's make sure we've got the right reference here. So I'm just going to double check that. That's why we always double check our drawings. So this is actually not a window opening. It's actually the door opening. And it's actually going to be number 2. So while we check these things. Detail number 2. And lastly, one thing I should mention, I've said it before, is when we do want to change the overall length of our little line here, we got to click on the view itself, and then you should see a little drag point populate. We can kind of drag that where we want. One thing I just noticed as I was doing this is if we do want to rename the drawing, best practice, you can probably just do it in our view name here. But a second thing I was thinking that we could just kind of click, like let me click in here. Revit, for whatever reason, it's not designed this way. So if we click on the actual title, I can't rename it. It's not like any of the other things in the software. We actually have to click on the view, and then you're going to see our little dots show up. And now it's going to let me change it. So extremely frustrating. That's just how the Revit software works. Um, just so you guys can see that. So next up, let's actually do number one here. So number one is actually cut through the masonry wall. We will jump back to our wall sections, our building sections rather, and we are going to go to our other view here. Our other view that is cut through the window. So I guess it's actually going to be in our elevator section. We've got this little window cut through. So remember to deactivate the view. You'll notice everything else is grayed out in this view. We can't touch anything. So that means we've got an activated view in its active format. If I right click here, deactivate view, now I'm in a zone where I can go and I can choose another view. Right click, activate view, everything grays out. We're going to do another call out. So let's grab this rectangle and very quickly here, grabbing this, pulling it across. I get this a little flatter. And similar thing, we know this says 1 to 50. We know our scale is actually going to be 1 to 25, and it's going to be fine. Fine being the detail level. So we can also see elevator callout. So we know that this is actually going to be called the masonry wall window opening. And now what we can do is we can come back into our wall sections, and we can actually move this. So you can see I'm just clicking on the view. We can move this over just a little bit. If you hold shift, it will line it up. I'll populate this with our other view. So same thing with our wall sections here. If we're kind of hovering, it's going to try and line up the overall floor levels. So click. We should have handy dandy couple of wall sections here. Move that over a little bit. Remember, if we click, we can just literally tap our arrow keys on our keyboard. That's what I'm doing right now, tapping the arrow keys, and get it moved where we want it to show up. So I'm going to activate my view and get the bubbles on the right side, just because this is how I like to do it. I would say it is also standard practice to do it this way. Remember, we can double click to get into our view. Oops. And tab select to get to these jams. Okay, a couple views, get them on the sheet, right? So we got a couple views there, got them on the sheet. What else do we got? One thing you'll notice is that in our overall view here, we actually just see the wall, the floor, and that's it. We don't really see anything beyond. And so in that way, we can actually look at our view here, and maybe we don't actually want to see in our Revit file here, we don't want to see that wall beyond. You may want to. I find it really effective to just see the wall when we're doing our wall sections here. So if we're concentrating on the enclosure, the envelope of the system, we really just want to focus, rather than looking at the doors and so on, we just want to focus on the wall. So one thing we can do here is we can adjust what's called the far clip offset. So you'll see that kind of showing up over here in the extents. And this is, again, another layer of how we're going to control those overall views. What I would suggest is to try and reduce it to something that's closer to us. So this is literally saying how far into the space are we seeing. So if I was to go ahead and modify this to, let's just call it 1,000. Let's see what we get. Whoops. Changes to 1,000, hit apply. You should see a change. It's not letting me change it. So let's go in here, hit apply. That should update. It keeps coming back here. So independent. So one thing you might have to do is change it from the, yeah, you do. So If it does say same as parent view, why don't I just go ahead? It's going to lock you in. It's surprising to me that you can just change it and it changes back. So same as parent view means that it would act the same as the view that we have for our overall building sections. In this case, maybe we don't want that. So we're going to change this far clip settings to be independent so that we can set it ourselves. Just make it 1,000 and we should see the drawing change. Now we can focus on the overall enclosure of the building. Let's jump to the second one here. We'll do the same thing. Let's just make it independent, set it to 1,000, and we should see these things change. Hit apply, things change. Uh, yeah, so that's one thing. And then I know in our best in town example over here, we've got a third overhead door section. This isn't to trick anybody. Typically, what we would want to do is have wall sections at each unique part of the building. So we want to see wall sections at each unique part of the building. It is best practice to take your wall sections from building sections, but this can really start to populate and overly saturate the set. So the set of drawings. So here what we've got is if I just come back into our floor plans, you're probably wondering, where is drawing 3, 400? And I know that we've got it in our overhead coiling door, our rolling door situation. So what we can actually do is try and find that in the plan. And let's just jump to number 3 here, get it over here. We can see 3 hanging out right here. Cool, right? So not every wall section will show up inside of a building section. And what we can do is we can generate call it a mini section inside of our floor plan. And it's a mini wall section rather than having to reference an overall building section. So what does this mean? We can just create a littler section. So let's jump back into Revit here. We'll cut it somewhere inside of our shipping area. And let's just go ahead and jump to that. I'll open up our floor plan, main level floor plan. And we can either use the quick access toolbar to grab our section, or we can come over here to the view tab, view ribbon rather, and click our little section tool inside our create panel. Right around here, you can notice I clicked once and then I can kind of control how far down I want to see this. I really just want to see the door itself. So let's click. We can see here, we can control how far the view is. We can also control things like the view scale. So view scale is over here, 1 to 100. I know that we're going to do 1 to 120, 1 to 25, and we know it's going to be detail level fine. Automatically, this is going to quicken things up, we'll say. But you can see here that section 1 has now populated inside of our section part of our project browser, section 1 over here. And why don't we just go ahead and rename it right now, 3400. It's going to be something to do with the garage door here, overhead door section. Let's call it overhead door section. And the way that we do that, we can click on our view itself. So click on our little section view here. Change it from section 1 to overhead door section. Hit apply. And now we've got all of view. You can see it doesn't yet exist on a sheet. We know that because this little blue square is not filled in, and we also know it over here because it has no reference. So what we can do is jump over to the A400 drawings here and pull and drag this onto our sheet. You can see here that this view is a little bit bigger. We can tell that because it's got this blue rectangle around the view, but that's okay. Why don't we try and line up our levels first? Click once. And let's make a couple modifications. So first things first, if I double click inside the view, I've now activated the view. Remember, we can right click, activate view. This is what's called the crop. So we've got a little crop in here. If I want to, I can pull this just a little bit tighter to kind of make our drawing a little bit closer. So same thing on the right side here. Remember, I'm going to move my bubbles to the right side, just because that's what I like to do. So now we are lined up. What we might want to do is just raise this up a little bit. If for whatever reason you do accidentally tap one of these little lightning bolts, little Harry Potter lightning bolts over here, what you'll see is the drawing will kind of evaporate on you. And all it's doing is it's creating a break. It's creating a break line. Your drawing has not disappeared. I just want to go through this super quick here. So if we click on it, you'll see a break happens. And this is a way to kind of get drawings that are really tall with lots of repetitive elements closer together. So for instance, if we didn't want to see any of that, we can use this little arrow. We can move. If we click, hold, and drag, we can move this zone closer, right? So the idea here is that if you did have something that says you got a really, really, really tall building, and you want to kind of just capture certain parts of a wall section, you can certainly use that break tool. I would say it's uncommon to do this, but just so you guys can see that tool, I'm going to go ahead and just undo that. If we want to undo what we've kind of got with the break here, what you can do is if you get these view boundaries really close to one another, so again, I'm just kind of dragging up here, they can get really close, but if they get too close and they touch, everything comes back together. You'll get a little warning. The views have been consolidated. So all good. Kind of the point of where we're trying to get to is here. And if we want to just right click, deactivate the view, and then I'll move my little section over here. This, remember, we can move this by clicking and dragging. Probably going to try and line it up with everything else here. It's best practice. Click on the view, drag our little dot over here. Same thing with our little jam over here, the masonry wall. Let's get this lined up here. Give it to me. There we go. Closer and closer, right? So just move that by tapping our arrow key. Something like this, starting to get pretty close to what we've got in our best in town drawing, right? So best in town sheet looks something like this. You're going to go ahead and you're going to make sure we've got our annotations in here, things like our wall types, door tags, and yeah, so the wall types, door tags, main thing, and then we're also going to get this little annotation in here eventually. Last thing here, we've got a couple additional callouts. So this is again super common. We've got we're just getting closer and closer to the detail of the drawing, and now what we need to do is I've just asked you to create a couple of additional detail views, just 1 and 2 on A500 here. And this can be really helpful for us just to draw more detailed elements of the drawing. So that being said, why don't we go ahead and do this? So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to get into our number 1 masonry wall window opening here. So let's jump back into Revit here. And let's just give ourselves a couple of extra views. So I'm going to right click, activate this view, and we're going to come up to our create panel inside of our view ribbon. We're just going to create a couple of callouts here. So click once and very simply click once, click twice, something like this. Remember, we can drag our head over here, get it to the left, nice and tidy. And we can, of course, also copy this if we want to. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this down. Nice and quick, we can move these views. And you should see in our little sections here, we've got callout 1 and callout 2. So some additional layer of detail in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to our A400 page, A500 page? I can't remember if it's 400, 500. A500 page, and let's just double check what these are called. So we've got the masonry wall window opening section sill detail and the masonry wall window opening section head detail. So detail 1, detail 2. So masonry wall window opening section sill detail. Am I going to be able to remember that? Probably not. I'm going to copy this and get this into our section here. So you'll see here, this is super common. For whatever reason, I have no idea why. You'll see the scale value here has jumped to 1 to 12. That is not convention. 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. I have a feeling that it wants to step us from 1 to 25 to 1 to 12 and a half. So it's stepping up by half every time. For us, I think it's either, yeah, it's 1 to 5 here. So we're going to change this 1 to 5. Whoops. 1 to 5. And we're going to make it fine detail. And then because I've got this pasted in here, I'm going to change the view name to what I've just for the windowsill. And the last thing here is I'm going to name it the other one here. Copy paste that. Section head detail. Jump up in here, and I'm going to grab our 1 to 5 detail level, fine, and then change the view name here. Done a little bit of extra work there in the background, so these have all been populated with the right scale, the right detail, and the right name. So last thing here, you'll see that the names have been updated. I can scroll over enough. So section head detail, section sill detail. So last sheet here, we need an A500. Right click, new sheet, A500. And what we can do now is grab our section sill and section head detail. So let's start with the sill. I know that's number 1, and get that in there. Get our head in here. So we should be able to see again our dashed line here, and that can be helpful for lining things up. So let's see what we got. We can see maybe these drawings are a little bit big for this page, but that's okay for now. What we can do is we're actually going to crop down. So we're going to crop down a little bit here. Activate the view by double clicking. We can just, let's get this a little bit tighter here. And I'm just going to hold shift and move the drawing down a little bit by tapping the arrow keys. This over, move this over, move this down, right? So it's looking a little bit like I got a lot of information in here. Let's just get this a little tighter. We're really focusing here on the overall window itself and how that ties into the overall building envelope. You'll do this all the time in the office. I just wanted to give us an idea of where we want to put our sections, section details. And you can see here, again, locked in, right? Locked in. Good to go. And that's our detail sheet. So not a lot of detail for a detail sheet. I just wanted us to demonstrate the idea of getting to um, some level of detail for our drawings. This is really just the first steps. But if we were to jump back to our overall wall sections, let's just do that super quick here. So A400, we can see that those references are automatically populated. This is a great way to get drawings onto sheets. So those are little detail sections. What else do we got? So we've got, I got about 20 minutes left in this tutorial. What else do we got? Another thing that might be really helpful if we were just to go back to our best in town office. One thing we might want to see, a nice little 3D drawing, right? A nice little 3D drawing. So if we wanted to get our drawing set up here on our title page, we can do that. And really helpful, what we can do is we're going to duplicate our 3D view, and then we're going to create a view with some shadows and give it a little character here. It's not going to be a perspective. It's just going to be an axonometric. I believe I made this a standard view, but let's go ahead and do that and then get that onto a sheet. So we don't need the elevations, don't need the sections right now, but in terms of our 3D view for our title page, I've already got one set up, but why don't we just go ahead and we'll double click this just so you can see the kind of final product here. And yeah, it's going to look a little strange because we don't have the topo solid in here, but at least we can set it up. So let's jump back to our 3D view here. This is really, I've got a section box going, but why don't we go ahead and let's just look at the default 3D view. Oh, I'm already in it. So a couple things here. What do we want to do? I've got a 3D view in here. I'm going to right click and I can actually duplicate this view and just duplicate with detailing. And we'll call it something smart like title page. Doesn't really matter. There's no view reference for us. But now what we can do is we can kind of mess around with this view without it impacting anything else. So again, I've got the section box on right now, but why don't we just go ahead and we'll turn that off. Second thing, we're going to change a couple things here. So let's change the detail levels, okay, but let's change the visual style. We're going to make this one hidden line. I think gonna look like, oh, it actually doesn't, but that's okay. So let's just go ahead, try and get it as close as you can. Something like this, right? Something like this. And we also have the shadows on, so hopefully your computer can handle this, but let's turn on the shadows, little shadows on, shadows off. Click that on, boom. Last thing we're gonna do is, I don't like having these pesky levels on. I think they muck up the drawing here. So let's click once, click twice with our control click, right click, and we're gonna just hide in the view. This isn't best practice, but just so we can get it done. Title page, looking looking all right here. So if I just come back here, pretty close, looking all right. And what we'll do is we'll create a little title page sheet. So what does it say on a title page? We got A000. What else we got? Title page. I think that's good. And now we can just simply drag that little title page view onto our sheet. And somewhere that makes sense, we can modify this afterwards. But one thing we don't want to see is this little title page view. So if we remember from the previous tutorial, the way to get rid of this, we'll click on the view itself, come up to our type selector, hit that no title there. Should be good to go. We don't, like, as I said, we don't have our topo solid in here, so it's going to look a little strange, but that's okay. That's how we get the view onto this sheet. Looking good. One other thing. Then I know we've also got a couple of 3D views. So a couple of 3D views, and let's walk through how to get those onto sheets as well. So if we jump to our couple of these here. So again, another 3D view of our exterior south entrance, and then some interior views. So we can either duplicate our exterior view here. Um, Actually, let's not do that. Let's create three new views. Let's create three new views here. We got the interior office view, the interior lobby view, and the exterior south entrance view. So how do we do these? We're going to use a little camera tool inside of Revit to generate just some quick sketches, basically, of our interior space. Simplest way to do this will be in the floor plan, in our main floor plan. So let's go there and just pop open our floor plan here. So main floor level. We can tell from our reference here, it's going to be around the front entrance here. But let's go ahead and go to the view here. And we've got, where is my camera tool? So you might not see it immediately and wonder where the heck is it? Drop down. So drop down in the 3D view here, we've got camera, and we're just going to set up a couple cameras. So what we can do is click on the camera tool, and what it's going to do is think of it like, where is the person standing? So we can click once. This is where the person is standing. And then this is kind of view cone. So what are they going to see? So for us, we probably want to see all the way down the building. If I click again, we've got something like this. Right? So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think that this is looking all right. What we can do is if we hold Shift, I'm just pulling out the crop here. If we hold Shift, we can actually rotate around the view a little bit. And I think this is looking pretty good. Might want to back off just a little bit here. And what we can do is it's up to you. You can either back up a little bit inside of our view, or we can reset the view entirely. So I'm actually going to come around. And the way that we back up is actually going to be through our little 3D view. Oh, it's not going to let us. Okay, so forget I said that. So one thing we could do is if we don't really like this view, we can modify it or we can just reset it. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But I think that for us, maybe what we do is we back off a little bit from the building. This isn't quite where I want it. So let's just see if we can grab a slightly different view from our floor plan. So main floor level, we should probably actually be standing back a little bit further. So let's try that again. Camera, stand back here. Looking a little bit better. You know what? That's okay for now. And let's just turn on our shadows. Remember, we got a little shadow view here. And yeah, perfect. So uh, it's looking okay. So it's not exactly what I wanted to do, but that's okay. So if that's what you've got, that's totally fine. I love that we have some shadows on here. And the way that we're going to do some of the other views here, let's jump back to our main floor level and grab some addition. Oh, so we can do it this way. So if we wanted to move where this view is taking place, we can actually click on the view itself, jump to the main floor level, and now adjust this a little bit. What I should have done. So you can see it disappears as soon as you deselect it. But if we've got it selected over here, come over here, and we're getting closer to more what we want. So crop this a little bit, rotate just a bit. So one thing I can see is that the time of day for our overall shadows here is probably not what we want, but and we can modify that if we wanted to. But for now, why don't we get the other views onto the sheet, and then let's see what we can do about this shadow here. So um, that's probably pretty close to what we got. In fact, I'm going to rotate around even more. Give ourselves a little bit of more of the view of the overall building here, and maybe just crop us off a little bit. That's okay. Something like this. Second thing, we got to do the interior view. So we got the exterior view. Now let's do the interior view. So I'm just going to delete this so we don't forget. Let's do the interior view. So how do we do that? Let's jump to the main floor level here. And roughly, let's see what we got here. We're roughly looking at two things. I could tell the interior lobby is from the lobby space and then looking all the way to the inside of the building. So it's going to be somewhere, again, back to our 3D view, we'll populate probably somewhere here, but I can see we got a pretty good vantage all the way to the end here. Click that, pretty good. That's about what we've got. Spot on. I think I've got some of I don't have shadows turned on, so this is looking pretty good. And then the last view we're going to set up is of the offices themselves, and that is a view that kind of starts, we're literally standing in the office looking across. Got some of these wonderful tall windows and all of our chairs, this type of stuff. Let's give that a shot. Get into our main page here. So let's go to our main floor level. And I'm going to guess I put it somewhere here, but let's go ahead and try that. So 3D view, camera, click. I think we see all the way across the building. Looking pretty good. You know what? This is looking all right. So these are pretty reasonable. Last thing we're going to do, we need to create that last sheet here. So A700, let's create a new sheet and get those views onto the sheet. So A700. And what we can do now is I haven't named them. So this is where it gets a little complicated, right? So which one is this? I think, oh, interior, right? So interior 3D view 2 is the outside of the building. We know that's going down here. 3D view 3 coming in over here. So try and get them lined up a little bit here. A couple things we might notice is that the overall size of this drawing is maybe not exactly what we want. So what we can do is we need to modify a couple things to get these drawings to be bigger. And so if I double click inside here, what do I have? Do I have anything that I can change the overall scale with? I do not. So perspective, how do I make this bigger? So I'm going to have to remind myself how to do this. I've done it before, obviously, because it's in the set, but how to do it escapes me at this moment. So we got 3 views on here. That's cool. So size crop, I believe, is how we do it. So let's see if we can do a little size crop here. Yes, it is. So we can lock the proportions here, and we're actually going to just make these a little bit bigger. So if we click on the view itself, we'll see the positioning and the view here. Really what I want to do is likely probably double the size of these views. So if we click on the view, we can hit size crop, scale it, and let's just double it here. So let's call it 300 by 200, hit apply, and we should have the drawing size increase. So apologies for my lapse in remembering there, but we're on track now. Same thing here. Why don't we go ahead and we'll size crop, scale. Let's just double it here, and we should have something like so. Yeah, so I think this is all starting to make sense. We can size crop, scaled. One's going to be a little bit bigger. Let's make it 500. Something like that. So, whoops. Now we've got a couple of our views on there. So what do we want to call this? This is the exterior south entrance. Remember, I've already got this view set up. Exterior south entrance. So let's try that again. Exterior south entrance. No problem. This one is going to be interior lobby. This will be interior office. Whoops. So just because it's nice to have everything nice and tidy and lined up, we might want to do that so that we've got our lines all hanging out. We can just drag this over, drag this over. And yeah, so that's how we set up our little 3D views here. So we've got interior, exterior, title page view. We're in pretty good shape for how we get these views onto sheets. And then today in class, so at 2:30 or so, we're actually going to go through and we'll get how to get these schedules set up and then how to get them onto our sheets. So let's go ahead and later on today, I'll see you in class and we'll do that together. So thanks for tuning in here. We're just about at the hour mark, so 52 minutes, and hopefully that all shakes out for you. It should help everybody get to the final phase here of our project. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in class later today. Thanks, guys.